You're listening to ThunderQuack Podcast Network.
Alrighty, here we go. This is our very first episode of the ThunderQuack Podcast Quarantine Zone. I am one of your hosts, Michael Cohen, and of course, with this new show that we're doing specifically for this trying time in our lives, I'm going to be bringing on some special guests, people that you maybe aren't used to hearing from on ThunderQuack, but there will also be some familiar voices that I've got on the schedule coming up, and I'll talk about that at the end of this live stream. But if you don't know, the ThunderQuack podcast is the official podcast of ThunderQuack.com, and you can get the ThunderQuack podcast every Tuesday early on Patreon. At patreon.com/ThunderQuack, or you can go to your podcast service of choice and get it late on Friday mornings. But this is a special thing. So we're doing this live. Hopefully you guys can hear me right now. Let us know in the chat if you can hear us and what you guys think, and please interact and be a part of it. But for this episode, for our first episode of the Quarantine Zone, I am very excited to have my good buddy Joe Hogan on the show. Joe, how's it going, man?
I'm doing as well as anyone can be these days. How are you?
Yeah, it's something else. It's something else. This is it's a weird experience. It's a new thing for all of us. I think it's been about 100 years since an issue such as this cropped up, and it's definitely the first time for our generation to really be experiencing this. I think SARS kind of, like, I don't know, I was a bit too young to really like grasp what was going on too much to really care. I was one of those dumb kids that was like, oh, whatever, it's not affecting me. But with this one, obviously it's a lot more serious than that. And now that I've got kids, everything is terrifying.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Just walking down the street is a nerve-wracking experience at times. So yeah, this is one of those things.
It's monumental, man.
This
is literally like our generation's thing that we're going to be talking about forever, I think. Honestly, I think this is going to change the world, for better, for worse. Hard to say, but I do think we're definitely going to see there's going to be a difference when this is all said and done. I do, hopefully it obviously goes as smoothly as our officials are pushing for it to. But it's like life before 9/11. We're gonna say, can you even remember what it felt like before that? I think it's gonna be the same kind of thing.
Yeah,
it's, pretty crazy, pretty jarring, of course. But
yeah, but we're not gonna focus too much on that because we got fun stuff to talk about. There are lots of things to keep us distracted, and that's what we're here to kind of dig into some of that stuff. Joe, a lot of people online might know you as a Star Wars guy, Star Wars artist. I just realized I'm not recording this in any way, and I was planning to pull it from the stream, but if the stream's not doing well, then it's going to be choppy. So I'm going to start recording with Skype.
Okay. I think we're okay because I had the volume going before you brought me in, and I heard everything. And everybody in the chat seems to be hearing us too.
Oh, okay.
Every time I checked a few comments, and it said everyone could hear us.
Excellent.
So.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. So you're an official Star Wars artist. I am technically an official Star Wars artist by way of you.
Hey man, it's the same way I became one
Yeah.
is the same way you became one. So you went through the same. You put your blood, sweat, and tears into
Yeah.
those cards
Into
as
those
well.
sketch
So
cards. So we have that wonderful sort of honorific on our Star Wars geek cred. It's there's a little card that you get if you're a real Star Wars fan.
yeah,
That and ours say Star Wars artist with a little asterisk next to it.
right.
I not didn't actually work for Lucasfilm, but
I think technically I haven't either, even though it was through Celebrate, because mine
yeah,
was through Acme. It was the Acme show, like,
yeah.
and the paycheck had Acme's name on it. So I don't think I qualify as a Lucasfilm Star Wars artist either.
Yeah, for sure. But you've done some really cool stuff in the past with your like web comics, like motion comics and that sort of thing. That people, maybe a couple of people that are tuned in right now might know about. But if not, where can they check that stuff out? Where can they see all your beautiful, amazing art?
Well, right now my YouTube channel I'm taking a break from, so normally that stuff would be up there.
Yeah.
But everything else, Instagram, DeviantArt, it's Joe Hogan Art is the tag for everything. So if you want to
Awesome.
follow me, Twitter, whatever, I'm on all that fun stuff.
Awesome. Cool. Well, let's get into some geeky chat. Let's talk
Yeah,
about some nerdy
please.
stuff. Man, where do you want to start? You want to start with Star Wars, or you want to start with Ghostbusters?
I mean, either one. Well, I will say this. Before all this happened, in October, I placed an order with someone for a Proton Pack replica kit, and it was actually, I don't know how familiar with Carl Leclerc your audience is, who is one of the hosts of the Wampa's Lair podcast.
They'd be more familiar if he ever bothered to come on any of the podcasts that I invite him onto.
Then.
But
well, Carl came to New York in October, and we did myself, Carl, and my girlfriend Tina. We dressed up as Ghostbusters and just went to all the film locations in New York, and people ate it up. People loved it, took pictures with us, like they thought it was like the greatest thing. About the three idiot Ghostbusters running around. It was so much fun. So I went home that night, and I was like, I'm done. I need a Proton Pack. I've wanted one my whole life. And I ordered it. It's coming tomorrow. And I'm like, I've waited so long. I waited my whole life for this, and then I've waited since October. This thing I'm putting on gloves. It's immediately going in the back. I'm not bringing it through the house, and it's just going to sit in my screen house for the next week and a half just to be safe. So I'm so frustrated, but I'm excited it's finally coming.
72 hours is apparently the lifespan of the coronavirus on
packages?
on surfaces on a surface. Okay. So I don't know if that was a hard surface, or I don't know how cardboard is going to do, but I think you'll be safe after a week and a half.
All right.
I think you'll be good.
So anyway, Ghostbusters is very much in the forefront of my mind right now because of this nonsense.
Well, I lots of movies have been getting delayed. Lots of things have been getting pushed out. So far, Ghostbusters Afterlife is in the safe zone, and I think is far enough out because that's June or July.
July. It's either the 5th or the 10th. I can never remember.
Okay. So I think right now we're safe. But AMC movie theaters did announce that they're going to be shutting down for 6 to 12 weeks in a lot of the major cities. So 12 weeks is a long time. That's basically the whole blockbuster summer season, right? But hopefully Ghostbusters Afterlife can sidestep that. I mean, we've been waiting for this movie since 1989, right? So we briefly thought maybe we were going to get a new Ghostbusters movie, but it turns out that they made this other one and just put the label on it. We won't get into that whole thing.
I mean, we can. I'm always ready to lock and load on that one.
ThunderQuack listeners know how I feel about that movie.
I have a feeling I feel the same way.
Yeah, a valiant effort, but not a Ghostbusters movie.
Right.
Maybe I like Ghostbusters in the same way that that cartoon and live action series was Ghostbusters.
Right.
The one with the gorilla. as one of the Ghostbusters. It's like, okay, we have all of these different Ghostbusters, and that counts. But yeah, man, Ghostbusters Afterlife. I looks like it's going to be. I mean, we haven't really seen all that much, right? But
Yeah.
just kind of knowing the creative team,
When do you think we're gonna get a new teaser? Because the last one was, I believe, December, right? It was the
yeah,
first one,
it
and then
was a
just
while
nothing
ago.
since then.
Yeah, wow. I mean, you would think probably in the next month or so. Certainly before or if not coinciding with Black Widow, right? Because that's kind of that movie is going to mark the beginning of the or was going to, because it's been delayed.
Right? Yeah, it's delayed indefinitely now, right?
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, Universal. It was Universal, right? That announced that they're um, that they're going to be releasing a bunch of their stuff. Trolls is the first one that, like, it hasn't come out yet, but they're gonna just release it straight to VOD. For Trolls World Tour, and a bunch of the movies that they've got in the theater right now. They're gonna be throwing on VOD. Actually, I think this Friday. I'm waiting to see if anybody else follows suit on that. There's a very real chance that this could kind of be the moment that changes everything for film distribution, where they find out, because they're forced into a situation where they're gonna release Trolls World Tour like just to everybody, right? To watch it whenever you want it, watch it in the comfort of your own home, and find out, oh, actually maybe we can make a lot more money doing it this way. And I'm not saying that they're going to do that and then it's not going to come out in the theater. It'll be in the theater as well. It's like, here we go, we release it in the theater, but maybe VOD is like 2 weeks later, in the same way that digital comes out, and then 2 weeks later the physical copies of things come out.
Right.
And we might start to see a model like that, where it's like, okay, the first 2 weeks are the theaters, and I can see a world where movie theaters are making deals to say, like, theater chains are saying, like, oh, we want 1 month exclusivity on Black Widow, or like the Eternals, or Doctor Strange 2 or whatever, right? Because they know that the Marvel movies are going to draw an audience. The same would be said for Star Wars or Fast and the Furious or any of the really big franchises right now. So I could see a world where that exists, that mentality is happening. But we kind of just been waiting for something to force Hollywood's hand on it. And I think like there's a partnership with brick and mortar theaters that I think that people are reluctant to let go of. And I agree with that. I mean, like, I love going to the movie theater, but I also feel like movie theaters are a little bit antiquated at this point. Like the multiplex is a little bit of a it's not a great experience, right? And things like the Alamo Drafthouse down in the States, I haven't managed to go to one yet because there isn't one anywhere near me, but I hear from so many people that it's such a great experience, and there are other theater chains like that. And here in Canada, we have with Cineplex, they have in some of their locations, it's called VIP. And it's basically the same idea. It's big, comfortable seats, basically love seats with an armrest that you can put up or down in the middle, if you wanna get cozy with the person that you're at the movie theater with. Which, why wouldn't you? And I'm not just talking about when I go with Crystal. I cuddle up with whoever I'm with if they want to.
You and I, if we catch a flick.
Absolutely, we would. Absolutely. No doubt about it. Just bring our own little blanket and get cozy. And they serve alcohol, and it's VIP 19 plus, so they can serve alcohol, and then they bring food, like actual food, not just Sour Patch Kids and popcorn
Right.
to your seat. The last time I went, Amanda and I went to see Birds of Prey, and actually that was the last time that I was in the movie theater, and I'm kind of glad that I went as crazy as I did, because I got like buffalo chicken fingers and cinnamon donuts, like fresh made cinnamon donuts, Sour Patch Kids, a big iced tea, and I was like, this is excessive. I spent about $40 just on snacks at this movie, and was like, I think I kind of overdid it. But now I'm thinking back and going like, well, go out in style, I guess. But yeah, I like it. Hopefully, if worse comes to worse, some of these movies start to get announced as VOD, so that we don't have to wait.
Are you cool? There's actually a question in the comments here. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your name right. Is it Kirsten? I'm gonna butcher it.
It's Kirsten, actually.
Okay.
Kirsten, I think. She'll let me know if I said it wrong. I'm not seeing the questions come up in the chat, so you read it out. I'm gonna see if I can figure it out.
All right, yeah, I'm gonna read it right now. It's she said, "What are your guys' thoughts on these straight to VOD releases and the concept of the quote unquote blockbuster? As in the concept of saying, I want to see this in theaters rather than wait to watch it on my TV." And I would like to kind of adjust it a little bit and ask you, other than the fact that, obviously we want to keep theaters closed for the duration until the point that it's safe to go. But, kind of jumping on that question a little bit, what do you think about, are there any exceptions for you that you would rather wait to be released? Like Ghostbusters. Would you rather wait to see Ghostbusters during a time when it's safe to go see it in a theater and have that theater experience and have those, the giant screen, the speakers, and that kind of experience where you're in a comfortable, recliner chair? Or would you rather just, no, I want to see it now, release it now, you guys make your money back? If you had a preference, are there any exceptions? Because obviously we don't want these studios to go bankrupt, but are there exceptions for you?
No. I actually quite enjoy my home viewing experience.
You just don't want to deal with people.
It's not even that. It's like I'm happy to go out to the movie theater as well, but it doesn't. I don't know. There is a ritual to going to the theater, and I think that that's an important part of it. And certainly with the big releases, the Marvel movies and the Star Wars movies, we have a whole thing. We go out to we go to the IMAX theater, which there's only 2 screens in Vancouver for IMAX, so you go one or the other. We go out to one, and we go to the Spaghetti Factory beforehand, and it's like it's always a big thing. But that said, I would be more than happy to, if I don't have the ability to go out, to see those movies at home. I mean, I just watched Rise of Skywalker on digital on Monday afternoon, and it's the first time watching it on my home entertainment setup, and we get to the third act of the movie, which I did not enjoy in theaters. It's okay the first time that I saw it, but like on my subsequent viewings, the other 2 times that I saw it in the theater, I was like, this is fine, but like it's so hard to, like, at that size and depending on the quality of the projector and whether or not the person who not that anybody really runs the projector on an ongoing basis, but like that's kind of the whole thing now, is that like it's all digital, it's all just done by the computer. Like they just set a timer and it just goes, and sometimes it plays the wrong movie because there's not a person sitting up there doing anything, and nobody's like checking for quality in terms of like focus or the light bulb in the projector or anything like that anymore. It's just all of that kind of the artistry of being a projectionist, which used to be an actual job title. It's all kind of gone away, right? And as a result, seeing movies in the theater, they're not awesome, I don't think. Um, like IMAX can sometimes be a little bit different, but your average movie screen, it's like, okay, it's the communal experience that I enjoy, but watching something at home, I have a 55-inch screen TV, so it's not that's
Oh,
definitely not the
excuse me.
it's not the biggest, but like that's pretty big, right? Like certainly compared to what I grew up with as a kid. And like my girls are definitely spoiled because these things are important to me. So, I'm gonna make sure that I'm, taking care of myself on that front.
home
And
home setup is stacked.
yeah, the 55 inch is feeling a little bit small to me these days, but
I'll take it if you're
yeah,
just
ship it
throwing
out
it
to you.
away.
Yeah, yeah, 55 inches, in high def it's not really that bad of an experience to watch at home. The Clone Wars always looks great on it. Star Wars Rebels always looked great on it. Resistance maybe not as much, but I go listen to Rebel Cells if you want to hear me gripe about that. Um, but yeah, Rise of Skywalker looked way better on my home setup, and I was watching it, and there's the shot where it looks like the Falcon is flying, and then we kind of pull back and we see that it's being towed by the TIE fighters. Um,
Okay.
in the theater, that's just a shot that was just okay, neat. But when I was watching it at home, it it I noticed just how much effort they put in to the lighting of that shot to make it look authentically like it did in the original trilogy. Like that sort of stark, very bright, flat lighting. And it's just there's just things like that I don't appreciate as much at the theater as I do when I get to view it at home. So if Ghostbusters Afterlife comes out, if they're like, hey, VOD on the release date, and they're like, hey, it's $25-$30 to rent this, I'd be like, yeah. I mean, if Crystal and I were going to see it in IMAX, it's about $45. So
Yeah.
for the two of us, right? So I would be willing to pay upwards of $40 to be able to watch that at home, so that they're still getting the same ticket price essentially. But at a certain point, if they own their platform, right? So for example, Ghostbusters being a Sony film, if they're like, yeah, okay, we're gonna do this, but you have to have a Sony device to watch this. So it's like you either got to do it on a PlayStation 4, or if you've got a Sony TV or a Sony laptop or whatever that you can do this with, then yeah, like that's like they own the distribution platform, and I got to buy it through the PlayStation Store or whatever, in order to rent it through the PlayStation Store. Then they're just making money hand over fist, because now all of a sudden we've cut out the middleman of the movie theater and we're not giving them anything, right? Which is sort of the thing that I think Disney is starting to figure out with Disney Plus, is like, yeah, let's not worry about distributing these on television networks that we have to have complicated partnerships in other territories and that sort of thing. Let's just Disney Plus, direct to consumer. That's why Netflix is so successful. That's why Netflix can make 10,000 shows, and yeah, I only watch like 6 of them, but that doesn't matter because they're making shows for their direct consumer market. Like I'm paying directly for the shows that I watch, and so is everybody else, and we're not all watching the same stuff, right? So there's a totally different dynamic there when you start going to that sort of a model. So yeah, I don't know. Like I said, this could be the turning point. This could be where everything changes. But we have to wait and see how everything plays out over the next couple of months, and where the dust settles, and when the crisis is over, how many of the things that these corporations were willing to do, in order to basically stay in business right now, are they willing to do after the fact, right? But I don't know. How do you feel about it? Would you watch Ghostbusters at home, or does it need to be the theater for you?
I mean, look, if they release at home, I'm gonna watch at home, right? Like
Yeah.
it's, we're diehard fans. We want to see it. We're gonna do it however we can. But I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Like a little bit of the magic would be gone, I think, for me to not
Yep.
see it in a theater. Because you mentioned it before. I love the way you called it a communal experience, which it is. Like you get together. You go to that first show at your local theater. All like the really nerdy guys are there. It's you usually get a really good crowd, and everybody's cheering at the fun parts and laughing, and like the audience is usually very respectful. That in most first showings that I've seen stuff, and it's always everyone's happy to be there and enjoying themselves, and it's just I don't know, it's just something really magical about being there with your fellow nerds and really just kind of enjoying yourselves together for the first time and being in the moment together.
Yeah.
Especially for stuff like Star Wars and for me and you, Ghostbusters, and all the Marvel flicks. Like I think the only movie I didn't get around to seeing, and it wasn't even because I didn't want to see it. I didn't get to see Captain Marvel in theaters. Like that's the only Marvel movie I haven't seen the night it came out. And even like the non-MCU Marvel movies, like all the X-Men movies, Spider-Man, everybody. It's just something about like, yeah, let's get together and celebrate our fandom. It's the same reason we do Celebration, right? Is we want to come
Yeah.
together and then like, all right, we're gonna go to dinner afterwards. We're gonna talk about the movie. Like that whole experience for me, I don't want to call it sacred, but it's there's definitely something to it that is just magical and satisfying. So yeah, I mean, I would definitely be sad, but I'm not. I have a PlayStation 4. I would be like the second that was available,
Yeah.
I'd be watching it from home. And I have a nice setup too. But like I worry that it's going to exclude people who aren't able to do that, who don't have a PS4, who don't have their Sony products. They're going to feel like, well, how much money do I have to spend
Yeah.
to see Ghostbusters now? And hopefully, down the line, by July, it's we're not still in this state of being on edge and panic and caution. But I would feel bad for the fans who wouldn't, who would be in this situation and wouldn't be able to see it. So I don't know. I mean, I'm really of two minds of it. I agree with everything you said, that if they can, maybe they should. If they do it, we'll enjoy it. We'll figure out a way to do it. But I really hope no fan is left behind. You know what I mean? Like that's really the thing that I feel strongest about. But yeah, I would absolutely have no problem sitting down and watching it. I wouldn't be like, no, I'm gonna wait till because no, like it's Ghostbusters today. Let's go. Who cares? Close the blinds. We're doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a weird thing because it's a lot of stuff out of necessity, but if you had the choice, would you go to the theater? It's like, yeah, of course I'd go to the theater. Like and it's one of the greatest things of like sort of one of the best bright sides of this whole shut in life is me realizing nothing really changes for me. I'm not seeing my friends that I work with. But I've actually been working from home a lot lately since Cassie was born. And I'm on part-time paternity leave right now. So, I'm only working 3.5 days a week anyways. So I was only going into the office 2 days a week, before this all happened.
Okay.
So I was only seeing my friends those couple of days. And then the rest of the time I'm basically with my family anyways. And then the majority of my friendships, they actually, this is exactly how they happen. The people that are the most important, I tend to talk to, on a podcast, because I've created a podcast so that I can stay in touch with them. And then everybody else I stay in touch with text, right? Like with whether it's on mobile, like on my phone, text messaging, or it's Facebook or WhatsApp or what have you, right? And and so that hasn't really changed. And I could kind of like it's funny that like I think, well, if they did release it in July on VOD because the movie theaters still aren't open, or it's, you know, we're still not feeling super safe in that environment, I definitely wouldn't want to watch it by myself, right? Like
Yeah, of course.
I would still want to say, like, you know, to a you know, select group of people, like, hey, do you want to come over and I and watch this at my place? I'm gonna rent it, right? Which I'm sure is what would end up happening if that were the case, and I'm sure that that's one of the reasons why it doesn't happen, right?
Mm.
Because, you know,
It's kind of like it could be this generation's, oh, come over for the big fight. We're gonna rent
yeah,
the fight.
yeah,
The next
yeah,
thing like that.
yeah. Pay-per-view isn't really a thing for us that much, right?
Mm.
So this would be that sort of thing. It would have to be. I think if they started doing it on a regular basis, it would have to end up being priced that way.
Sure.
So it's sort of like, this is going to be like $60. So you better make sure that you've got some friends coming over and everybody's chipping in and that sort of thing to kind of make up for ticket sales. But I don't know. Like I said, it's everything's still so in flux. It feels like everything is changing on like a daily basis. And only really today do I feel like it's actually starting to calm down a little bit, where everybody's
Mm.
kind of like settling into like, okay, so this is our new normal for the moment. But I you know, we'll weather it, we'll get through it, and then life will go back to some semblance of normal. But it's interesting to me to think about what stuff is going to be changed forever, right? What stuff's going to be irrevocable. It's like,
Mm.
to go back to the last time that I think something major like this happened, which would have been 9/11. If you watch a movie before September 11th, 2001, that involves destruction on a mass scale, let's say like an Independence Day or something like that, the explosions are very like, it's a ball of fire, right? Like the whole building is
Mhm.
a ball of fire. All of the White House is a ball of fire. And then 9/11 happened, and we all watched that, some of us in real time on the news as it happened, and saw what actually happens when a building collapses because of an explosion. And then you think of all like everything after that, and Man of Steel is always, I think, the biggest example of this. And that sort of like mushrooming effect of the building collapsing, it's like that's what we see in
Mm.
movies now. We saw it in Man of Steel. We saw it in Transformers 3 is another great example of like a really big disaster style movie that did that. And it kind of, it changed the way that we looked at things, right? It changed the reality of that, and it actually kind of like, it made this imprint on a lot of creative people that came out in our media over the next 20 years, 20 plus years now. It'll be very interesting to see the movies 5 or 6 years from now, the stuff that sort of the stuff that's being written right now as people are in isolation and they're writing these stories. And are they all going to be about pandemics and viruses and that sort of thing? No, I don't think so. But I think, you know, within the next few years, we're going to see all these movies that are about isolation, that are about um, uh, uh, you know, mass panic and sort of like the selfishness of society and stuff like that. Like, these themes are going to start to crop up in our movies, whether it's you know, like a big blockbuster like a Marvel movie, or it's something, you know, smaller, like a smaller independent film. Like, that subject matter is going to creep in there, and it'll be an interesting exercise, you know, 10 years from now, to start going like, where did that affect stuff? Where did that affect our media and the conversation and the stuff that was coming out? Because it's going to, it's gonna be, there's a whole generation of young people much younger than us, that like this is going to be formative for them in the same way that I think 9/11 was formative for us. So 9/11,
Yeah,
Columbine, and stuff like that, like everything that kind of happened around that time, that really informs the type of movies that our generation makes. So
to kind of jump on that a little further, like the example that I always think of is how Japan obviously had two nuclear explosions, and I don't want to say that they had it. Like obviously it was the United States that did it, but uh, it really impacted the culture there, where eventually manga and later still anime, the themes of just the apocalypse,
yeah,
like they experience the apocalypse. That's why it's so prevalent
yeah,
in their I don't know the right way to phrase it, but like so much of their art and media has been
yeah,
influenced by that imagery
yeah.
of that just mushroom cloud, and like you see it in almost every anime and every manga,
Oh yeah,
right? Where
it's in their
it's in
psyche, right?
everything.
Like yeah. To just throw up the examples, it's like Ghost in the Shell, Neon Genesis Evangelion,
Akira,
Akira, Battle Angel, like everything. Not everything, but so many things have that post there. It's a very specific flavor in their sci-fi genre of a post-apocalyptic new civilization. So a catastrophe happens, and then the civilization rebuilds on top of that in a new
mhm.
way, and technology is usually a really big part of that. And that actually, so much of that has to do with after World War II, all of the sanctions that said like you can't build the same as it is for Germany, right? You can't build warplanes, you can't build battleships, you can't build tanks, you can't build weapons, which was all stuff that Japan was in the 1930s they were getting into, they were ramping up, and that's one of the reasons why they were such a force in World War II. Um, they were prohibited from doing any of that stuff, so all of their industry pivoted away from that into electronics, and that's why in the 80s we saw that all of our electronics were coming from Japan, right? It was all Sony and Toshiba, and like and that was because they were forced into that situation. And it comes across in the media that was coming out at that exact same time, and that's exactly what we just talked about. All of that anime and manga that's from that era, that plays with those tropes, like it that's what was going on in their psyche, and whether it was conscious choice or not, it all kind of ends up in their media, which is a really interesting effect. I've said the word
This is the
interesting so
best.
many times, but that's okay.
This is the best Ghostbusters discussion I've ever had.
Yeah, we really haven't even talked that much about Ghostbusters. Let's zero in on Ghostbusters
Cool.
to close this out. We'll do maybe about like 5 or 10 more minutes, and then we'll close it out. But I'm gonna ask you a question about
Oh, hit me.
Ghostbusters.
Hit me.
Why is Ghostbusters so important to you?
To me,
Yeah,
oh man. Oh, that is a very difficult question to answer. I
yeah,
I have so many. Oh man, where to even begin? How to form this into one cohesive answer? Um, I mean, I'm a Star Wars fan, but I was a Ghostbusters fan first my whole life. I I don't know what it is, and it was such like a family thing too. Like
yeah,
my whole family
yeah,
can quote any line from Ghostbusters. If you say a line in Ghostbusters 1 or 2 to any of my family members, they can give you the next line. So it was just such a big, just present part of my life for as literally as long as I can remember. Um, plus, like once I started going to art school in Manhattan and working in Manhattan and just in general being in Manhattan, because I'm in Staten Island, which is part of New York City, but it's like the forgotten borough, so to speak. So there's 5 boroughs of New York City, and we're like the suburb part that everyone likes to forget about, with good reason. But I wasn't really around Manhattan that much. But once I started to like actually be there, it felt like home, and those movies just felt more like, yeah, this is my home. You know what I mean? Like this is our these are our films. When I think of New York movies, like it's Ghostbusters to me. Those movies are so New York.
Yeah.
There's so much of New York is kind of a character in those movies. You know what I mean? Which I always really appreciated. Like it really feels, you walk around Manhattan and it feels like Ghostbusters in a weird way.
Yeah.
So
I
mean,
I've never been, and it's one of those things, like it's on my list and I've always wanted to go, and that's one of the reasons. It's like Ghostbusters is just like it's literally a character in the second movie. That movie doesn't really have a plot without the character of Manhattan as an integral part of it. That's kind of the whole point, is that Vigo is able to do what he does because he's in this town with all this
right.
this frustration and anger,
Yeah.
and he takes advantage of it. So
Right.
no, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, the one quick note on, I think, why it's still so close to me is, like I said, it was there for my formative years, and like it really kind of established my sense of humor from the beginning. Like I understood humor through Ghostbusters. Like and it was one of those things that, when you're younger, a lot of those jokes go above your head. But the older you get, the more it kind of gives you, and the more you understand, and the more you just kind of unpack and appreciate. And I feel like that's a movie I've seen over 500 times, probably both of them over 500 times, because it's one of those movies that I can watch it and then I can just put it on again and watch it again.
Yeah.
And every time, no exaggeration, I watch any of those movies, I notice something else and I appreciate something else differently that I didn't the previous time.
Yeah.
Because it's just like it's so well crafted, and just like, it's been said to death on the comedic genius on of course Dan Aykroyd, Bill Murray, Harold Ramis, Ivan Reitman obviously was a big part of it, and everyone, Lewis, Janine, everybody, Winston, of course. Everybody forgets Winston, and it drives me crazy that everyone forgets him, and I almost forgot. It's just like it's such an amazing group of people, and all the people, the editing is perfect, like the music is great, like it's just one of those things that it's just a complete package that, for me, I can always go back to it and enjoy it. Not quite like the first time I saw it because I've seen it so many times, but I can always be present when I'm experiencing it.
Yeah.
What about you? Now that I rambled about it.
Yeah. I have a phrase that I coined last year, which is a perfect 10 movie, and my literal benchmark for what a perfect 10 movie is Ghostbusters. And it's like, it's the movie that led to me defining that term for myself. And a perfect 10 movie is a movie where there isn't a single thing worth changing. There's not a frame out of place. There's not there's not a bad performance. There's not and sometimes a perfect 10 movie has a bad performance, but that bad performance is part of why it's a perfect 10, right? So like I say, like there's not a thing worth changing. It's not that it couldn't have been a better movie, but it couldn't be better. Right? Like it's sort of a little bit of a paradox. And it's movies like Ghostbusters. It's like the first Back to the Future, Shawshank Redemption, Forrest Gump. There's just, they're rare and they come around. Like maybe you're lucky if you get one every year. Like I'm hard pressed to think, like last year, I guess Endgame probably fits in that. Endgame is probably a perfect 10, but Endgame, and the MCU has kind of broken that mold, because it's like, is this a movie or is this just the latest issue of
Chapter 21?
Yeah, exactly. But like in recent history, a movie that really goes overlooked that's sort of in this caliber, I think, is the movie Oblivion with Tom Cruise, where it's like, I don't care if you don't like that movie, if it's not your cup of tea, that doesn't matter to me. Um, Whether you like that movie or not, that movie is exactly what it's supposed to be. And Ghostbusters defines that for me. I have met people in my life that have said to me, I don't really like Ghostbusters. And those people, I can't fathom how they could feel that way, but and it's like they're totally valid in having their own opinion on it, even if it's wrong. But I will fight them with my dying breath if they try and tell me that it is not a perfect movie. You don't have to like it, but like you can't deny that Ghostbusters is a perfect movie. And then on top of it, I think the thing that works so well with it is exactly what you were talking about, that family element of, yeah, there's the movie, but then there's also the cartoon, and there were also the toys and the cereal and the ecto cooler, and like it was a whole thing, right? And being born in 1985, I'm just like right in the pocket for it, right? That like it's inescapable. That and Ninja Turtles, I any boy born between I think like 1980 and 19 I would say 1990, like it's pretty hard to escape these things. Like they had this gravity to them that just kind of pulled you in. And I what an incredible concept, just uh in its simplest form. um and Dan Aykroyd, like I think one of the things that makes it last so long for me is again what you talked about, where every time you go back it's different and there's something else to explore and something else to dig into. And how much more I appreciate Dan Aykroyd's imagination in
Mm.
creating this world. And I mean, I would love to see, in the same way that they did the Star Wars comic book, like full, like the Star Wars, which was an
Right.
adaptation of George Lucas's original screenplay, the one that everybody said like, this is too big, you could never make this movie. And so he broke it down into three parts and then just made the first part. um, like in the same way, there's a version of Ghostbusters that Dan Aykroyd wrote that everybody was like, Dan, this no one can make this movie. The
It's
movie
too
that you've
expensive. This
just
is
the movie
tripping.
that you've just pitched is like $500 million in 1984. So yeah, like let's bring it into modern time. Let's make it reality. There's no aliens, there's no spaceships. It's none of that stuff. Bring it. I would love to see somebody do a comic book or a cartoon or something that takes that source material and adapts that, because I just think it's so brilliant in its conception. But then again, like the next layer on top of that is Ivan Reitman and Harold Ramis coming in and taking the genius of everything, of this sort of like stream of consciousness narrative that Dan Aykroyd created, and going like, what's important here, and
Mm.
let's reduce it. Let's take it from this really rich, fatty sort of also delicious but in a different way meal, and reduce it right down to the juice, like right down to the gravy. And that's what that movie is. It's like it's everything you need and nothing you don't. Um, and that aspect of it, it's just I think that's why it lasts and why it's a classic. um and it's like it's timeless. Like Kara loves Ghostbusters,
Aw.
and she loves it because, like, as a kid, I think there's something really powerful in telling your children, yeah, there are scary things out there. Yeah, there are ghosts. There are things that go bump in the night. There are monsters and terror dogs and Stay Puft Marshmallow Men. But if you stick together with your friends and you put your heads together, right? Science can win. We're human beings, and we have something that they don't, and that's this ability to overcome with our ingenuity and our creativity. And like that stuff is all like, those are some really lofty ideas to get into a kid's head, but it's really simple when you go, here's a proton pack, here's a neutrino wand, and here's a ghost trap. I ain't afraid of no ghosts. It's right
Yeah.
there, right? And like I talk about it right now, it's like the hair on my arm is standing up because there's just something visceral about that. Of like I said, there are scary things out in the world, and kids know that. They know that instinctually, and it's ingrained in us as human beings. But here's a cartoon that comes along and says that they don't have superpowers. They don't have, there's nothing really special about them other than the fact that they're smart, and they're brave, and they're friends. And it's sort of those three things that come together, and you go, you know, nothing can stand up against them. And as a kid, I you know, like that, I just think there's nothing more empowering than being a 6-year-old with a neutrino wand that projects a ghost on the wall, and you can catch that ghost and lock away the bad stuff in the containment unit, right? Like, I don't know, there's a magic in that Dan Aykroyd was hitting on. And it's the core reason why I don't feel like the 2016 Ghostbusters movie is a Ghostbusters movie. They blow the ghosts up, and
Yeah.
that's not how it works. And that's not me being like a nitpicky fanboy of like, you didn't watch the movie good. It's there's an alchemy in the process that they put in that film. Of, you know, like we take the reading, we figure out how to catch this ghost, contain it, and trap it indefinitely. And that, like, there's a control there that's different from destroying, that's different from killing and blowing up. It's there's a power in being able to say like, no, we're the master of these things, these supernatural things. And it's missing in that movie, and it's for me, it's one of the reasons why it doesn't work. So yeah, Ghostbusters is there are very few things like it. And I think that it's a special franchise that deserves to be treated that way. And I think that Jason Reitman's going to do a good job. So I can't wait. I can't wait for Afterlife. I think we're in the right hands. Casting Paul Rudd as our proxy, as the proxy for all of us fans that grew up with the Ghostbusters, I think is the best indicator at how on the nose the movie's going to be, and how well it knows the subject matter. But yeah.
Yeah. Well said.
Awesome. Okay, so we went longer than I expected, but I kind of almost expected us to do that too. Thank you so much, Joe, for joining me. Hopefully this whole thing doesn't last long enough that I have to bring you back on again. But also, I mean, like, this was fun, and I like the idea of doing these live streams, and I don't know, I might try and find a way to make this a permanent thing. So I don't think it'll be every Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday night, but we'll see what we can do in the future. Like I said, the stuff that we're doing, the concessions that we're making, the adaptations that we're developing for this crisis, some of these things are going to stick with us afterwards. And who knows, maybe these live streams will be one of those things. So if they are, I will definitely have you back on to have you listen to me talk about things again.
Well, you know I'll be home, so.
Yeah, this is true. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Joe, for joining us. Everybody go follow Joe on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. Joe Hogan Art. You won't be sad that you did. Because this is an audio medium, I'll just give a brief description. Joe does a whole lot of Star Wars stuff that is very much in the style of the Genndy Tartakovsky Clone Wars series. But I would say that Joe has taken that style and grown past that, beyond that, into something that I think is even better.
Well, too kind, sir.
Yeah, well, I have to a little bit. And he's also one of the nicest guys I know. So,
I gave you $20 to say that before. I PayPal'd you before.
True. It's true.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
But that's it. That's it for our first Quarantine Zone episode. I hope everybody is staying safe and staying sane out there. We'll be back again tomorrow night. Tomorrow, I'm actually going to have my wife, Crystal, on the podcast. And she's not the only special guest that'll probably be joining us, because I don't know if you guys could hear it in the background, but Cassie didn't want to go to sleep. And she probably won't tomorrow night either. So she will probably be on the podcast with us, babbling away.
Yeah, family show.
Nonsense. Yeah. So look forward to that. Like I said, we'll be back tomorrow night, 8:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. If not, you can always find it on podcast services the next day. Just go search for ThunderQuack podcast on whatever podcast service you choose to listen. Here we go. I think it's facebook.com/ThunderQuack. On Twitter, it's @ThunderQuackPod, and I think on Instagram it's ThunderQuackPod as well. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram. I'm @Arkwulf, ARKWULF. And yeah, if you enjoyed this and you want more of it, go support us on Patreon, patreon.com/ThunderQuack, and you can get early access to the ThunderQuack podcast every week on Tuesdays, or you can just get it for free on Fridays, but it comes with ads. Cool. Again, thank you, Joe, for joining me. Thank you to everybody who was in the chat, all of our diehard ThunderQuack fans, Jason, Sherston, Sarah Beth, although Sarah Beth went to sleep because it's very late for her. I see that Matt Cranky is in there as well, the Crankster himself. Thank you, everybody who joined us live, and we'll see you tomorrow night.
Bye, guys. Stay safe.